Hello, cryptocurrency investing community. My name is Jeff Kerdakis. I am here with Graeme Moore, the VP of Marketing with Polymath. Graeme, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you having me on.
So first things first, that's maybe on a lot of people's minds, but a little bit pressing. You know, we just saw the market dip about 10% in the last 24 hours. What are your thoughts on that and how it relates to, I guess you could say, the longevity and growth of the cryptocurrency space as a whole?
Yeah, personally, I do not care about the prices of utility tokens or Bitcoin or Ethereum or any of these things. I do not care whatsoever. To me, that entire segment of the world and of the cryptocurrency world is all about how can we have sound money that people want to use? How can we have programmable money that makes things that were previously impossible possible? Mm-hmm. How can we make the world of finance and value transfer and all these other proposed things like supply chain management, all these other types of use cases with blockchain technology? How can we make these come to life, and how can we make the world a better place? So as far as one Bitcoin is worth $20,000 or one Bitcoin is worth $6,000, I don't care at all. If a Bitcoin was worth $5, I really personally don't care at all whatsoever. It's not going to stop the fact that I think this is one of the most amazing transformations that any of us will see in our lifetime, save maybe artificial intelligence killing us all.
Yeah,
but until that happens, I think this is the biggest monumental shift in the way the world works. And so as far as the price of cryptocurrencies, I'm not too concerned about that. And if somebody is really concerned about that, I think they don't really understand what's going on here. This is a massive transformational shift on a global level. And the day-to-day prices of what these things are worth relative to government's pieces of paper, I don't think is really the biggest thing that people should be focusing on.
Yeah, I fully agree with that, especially when we're comparing to fiat, which is the thing that we're trying to essentially get away from. It is kind of like a redundant comparison to be making. So yeah, fully agree on that. And it's really what we're building and what we're creating. That's the real important part. And, you know, you mentioned when you were talking there, something about utility tokens. And what Polymath is doing is essentially providing a platform for security tokens. If you just want to expand for people exactly, just very briefly, what is the main difference between security tokens and utility tokens, and why are security tokens such a big deal?
Yeah, a security token is a financial security that functions as a token on a blockchain. So financial securities are things like stocks, bonds, shares in funds, derivatives. So anything that represents ownership in something else or that tracks the price of something else. So that would be a derivative, for example. Mm-hmm. And so what we're doing at Polymath is we're making it much more easy for people to create these security tokens. And so, I mean, well, who cares? Why does that matter whatsoever? Well, it's because securities are the backbone to, in my opinion, the entire global economy. Mm-hmm. If you look at how many stocks exist in the world, it's in the trillions of dollars. If you look at how much debt exists in the world, it's in the trillions of dollars. If you look at how many derivatives exist in the world, that's in the quadrillion of dollars, mm-hmm. Not even trillion or billion. And so the majority of the world functions in terms of ownership with securities, financial securities. But there's a lot of problems with financial securities, especially when you kind of get into the world of private securities. So people might be familiar with public securities, which are stocks that are traded, for example, on the New York Stock Exchange or on the NASDAQ. So these are things that are traded thousands of times per day. And there's a lot of friction involved in that. And there are some serious problems that we're helping to address. But for the most part, people are generally pretty happy with that system. But in the world of private securities, so these are things like private corporations that you might own. The way that you express your ownership of those securities is on a piece of paper. And I mean, that's insane. So
yeah,
those private securities are essentially almost never traded. And if they are, you have to phone someone in order to do so. You have to get a lawyer involved. You have to get a transfer agent involved. You have to get all of these different people involved to trade these securities, which we've shown through the use of blockchain technology can just be replaced with a simple token that lives on a blockchain. And I mean, you see the transactional volume on all these cryptocurrency exchanges. It's insane, right? Like, because they're so easy to trade. Tokens are so incredibly easy to trade. When you trade them, the settlement occurs upon the trade. So kind of to elaborate on that point, when you trade a traditional financial security, like a stock, for example, the security doesn't actually get traded at that point. Mm-hmm. What happens is you say, okay, I'm going to sell this security to this person. This person says, okay, I'm going to buy this security from this person. The settlement doesn't actually occur until a couple of days later. And the reason is because there's all these brokerage houses and all these banks and all these clearing houses that have to communicate with one another and say, okay, this person did this person did this. And they have to essentially then all, after a couple of days, match up and confirm, okay, yeah, that was the right thing. Okay, yeah, it works. It's fine. Mm-hmm. Like, blockchain technology completely does away with all of that. It says, okay, no, these tokens, because they're able to move so quickly and so effortlessly and utilizing blockchain technology as the backbone, we can do it for essentially zero fees, or very, very close to zero fees. And so when you trade something with a token that's on a blockchain, the trade is the settlement, which is a very, very interesting idea that we're really excited about.
Yeah, because you're removing that middleman and those times that it takes for that transition and that transaction to actually take place. So, you know, you're working on fees, you're working on the time of settlement, and essentially you're providing massive amounts of liquidity and tradability 24/7 to these assets that already exist. So it's almost like a level up on the current stock market as well, correct?
100%. Yeah, it makes no sense that I can't trade stocks on the weekend. You know, yeah. I can't trade stocks on the 25th of December for some. Like, it's absolutely crazy to us to think about that. It, like, in the age of the internet, where everybody wants everything now and everything should be available 24/7, this old legacy world of financial securities, it doesn't function that way. Some people's banks still aren't open on Sunday. Like, what is going on?
It's the only day we have off. Come on, why are you?
Yeah, it makes absolutely no sense. If you want to send a wire, sometimes your bank on the weekend will say, no, come back on Monday. Like, that is insane. And so kind of what Bitcoin has done and what all these other cryptocurrencies have done for the world of money, instantaneous value transfer 24/7, any time of day. There is no downtime on a blockchain that works properly. We can talk about EOS maybe another time.
That's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah. But so what Bitcoin and Ether and all these other cryptocurrencies have done for value transfer in the form of money, we're trying to do for the world of capital markets and financial securities.
Mm-hmm. And so this is a multi-trillion dollar and is like essentially asset class right now that's already in existence that could benefit from the transition to security tokens. Like what's the like $50 trillion of real estate at least? And then you can maybe expand on some other sectors as well.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to really take this idea to its logical conclusion, a lot of people talk about this, the tokenization of everything.
Yeah.
Right. So if it becomes so easy to chop up something that I own into small pieces and to sell off fractional ownership units of that, why wouldn't I? Mm-hmm. You know, if I have one house, but I want another house, why don't I chop up 40% of my house, sell it to investors who are interested in speculating on the price of my house? Now I have more money to go buy a second house, and I can now go rent that house out and create an additional income for myself. So there are so many examples where if you own an asset, it's really hard to securitize that asset today, chop it up into a bunch of pieces and sell it off. But with token technology, it makes it much easier for all of that to occur. And that's like, I would say like a little bit down the line. Like, I don't see every single person on earth chopping up their house into a bunch of pieces, but I think at one point it will be the de facto, why wouldn't you do that?
Well, especially when housing prices are where they are, you know, you don't want to be paying these crazy interest rates.
Yeah, completely.
So what is it then exactly that Polymath is doing for these security tokens? What is the value add that you guys are giving to the security token ecosystem?
Yeah, we're making it easier for someone to go from, hey, I have this idea, I want to raise capital for my new business, or I want to go raise capital for my new business venture that my existing business is already doing, or hey, I have this asset and I want to essentially raise capital and use the asset as collateral. Now what do I do? Well, Polymath is streamlining the whole entire process from going from that idea point at the beginning to, okay, now I have an actual financial security that I can give to investors, and in exchange, I'll receive money from them. So there's a whole bunch of disparate parties that are involved in the capital raising process. You have an advisory firm, so that'd be somebody like an investment bank or broker dealer. There's a legal team that you'll likely be working with to make sure that you're doing everything above the law. There's a KYC provider. In this world of smart contracts and tokens, there will be a smart contract developer who's helping build this token for you and who's helping make sure that the contracts for your sale all work properly. And so there's all these different people. And so how do you meet all these people? Mm-hmm. Well, one place is the Polymath platform. So you as an issuer, you have this idea, you want to raise some money. You come to the Polymath platform and you walk through these steps. So there's one screen that goes, do you have legal counsel? No. Well, here are the 5 that we recommend, or here are the 10 that we recommend. And here's ratings for all of them. Here are all the other deals that they've worked on in the past. And here's what everybody says about them. Do you have an advisory firm who's helping you fundraise? No. Well, here are the 10 that we recommend. Do you have a KYC provider? Here are some we recommend. Do you have a smart contract developer? And this is the really exciting part for me, is the smart contract developer portion. So pretty much every single time today somebody wants to do an ICO, they're likely hiring a smart contract developer. They have to pay them, I don't know, let's say $100,000, $200,000, get them to build all these contracts for their sale, and then ensuring that they get audited. And then the issuing entity who's running the ICO will eventually use that smart contract. And then, okay, cool, done. What we want to happen at Polymath is we're assembling this essentially massive repository of smart contracts that anybody can use for an issuance. And so at the point where the Polymath platform gets used many, many times, and people have done a lot of issuances for security token offerings, so that's a STO, we call it a security token offering instead of an ICO. Why would you pay a smart contract developer $200,000 to build you a smart contract when you can just use one of the smart contracts that's been used 8,000 times before and you essentially rent it? So that's the way we're thinking about that too. And so that's going to really dramatically lower the costs the entry for anybody who's looking to do a security token offering.
So that would really reduce the turnaround time, once these smart contracts and the framework starts getting built out, because now, you can just go in, pick your smart contract and exit. Whereas, it could take a decent amount of time to create one of these smart contracts, probably one of the most time intensive processes. I guess the question would be, let's say someone comes to Polymath with an idea. What would you say is the standard, and I know it's tough, but you could just ballpark it, like standard turnaround time if they wanted to create an STO through Polymath? And I won't even go into the fees unless you have some kind of ballpark figure.
Yeah, for the turnaround time, it's about 10 minutes.
So that's not too bad then.
Yeah. So the thing, and I mean, that's like the wow, create an STO in 10 minutes type answer. Yeah. You can do that. Okay. What you're going to get after 10 minutes is you're going to get what we call an ST20 token. So I'm sure people are familiar with ERC20 tokens. That's the most popular kind of token that people are creating on top of the Ethereum blockchain. ST20 tokens are ERC20 compatible tokens with additional functionality built in. So they are essentially, you could think of them as ERC20 tokens, but with additional functionality that allows them to be regulatory compliant as real financial securities. So, somebody might say, oh, but somebody said that ERC20 tokens are regulatory compliant. I just have to KYC and AML verify people I sell them to or whatever. Yeah. So you're correct, kind of. But the thing is that when you're dealing with the world of financial securities, there are a lot of regulations. There are a whole massive number of regulations and rules that you must follow, or you run the risk of essentially going to jail or having to pay obscene fines. And so one of the big things that we helped pioneer at Polymath was this idea of, you could call it a whitelisted ERC20 token. And so how that works is you create this ERC20 token, and that's your financial security. You have a document somewhere, you have like an offering memorandum or something that says, okay, if you hold one of these tokens, that means you own 1% ownership in my company, or 1% ownership in my house, or 1% ownership in this piece of artwork I have, whatever it is. And so even if you, as somebody who's given a financial security, even if you've given this investor your financial security and you've KYC and AML verified, you know that they're a person who lives in country X, which is allowed to participate in this offering. You know where they live, you know that they make enough money to be an accredited investor if that's the type of offering you're doing. Cool, that's great. But there is nothing at all built into ERC-20 that prevents that person from turning around and giving that financial security to someone in North Korea.
Right.
Giving that security to somebody who's in ISIS, or somebody who's on one of these blacklists of people who aren't allowed to hold certain securities. So what we've built is an ERC-20 token that has to call a whitelist that's maintained by a KYC provider in conjunction with the issuer. And what happens is the token, before it gets traded among anybody, is the token calls this whitelist that just maintains a whole bunch of Ethereum wallet addresses of people who have been KYC verified. The token calls the whitelist. It says, hey, is this person right now who has the token allowed to sell this token? Yes. Okay, cool. Check mark. Is this person who's trying to buy this token allowed to hold it right now? Let me check. Are they on the list? Yes. Okay, they're on the list. Do they have any restrictions in terms of regulatory lockup periods or anything? No. Okay, check mark. The token can now be transferred. And so that's one of the big breakthroughs that we've had at Polymath, is creating this technology where we can actually embed regulatory compliance into the financial securities themselves. Whereas like in the previous world, ICOs, there's essentially no regulatory compliance in terms of trading in the secondary market. And then also contrasted with the world of paper share certificates, which we talked about earlier, where trading restrictions are done by a lawyer looking at something, or a transfer agent looking at something and saying, reading it and going, oh yeah, no, you can't do that. Like, that's a human being that has to sit somewhere and restrict the trading of securities. You know, like, that's their job. Like, that's crazy that there's a human in 2018 making sure that a financial security can't go from person A to person B. So what we're saying is you can actually build all of the tech into the token itself that conforms to whatever regulatory compliant regime you're trying to comply with. And we think that that's a really, really big breakthrough. And that's what's going to actually allow this future of security tokens to take shape.
So that's really, really exciting. And this can be done in essentially 10 minutes. Obviously, you know, you can't hire a smart contract developer and have them develop code and all the regulatory and legal things involved in that within 10 minutes. That would take a little bit longer. But then in terms of paying these developers or these legal aids or, you know, like VC investors, whatever it is, I know that exactly the question is, what is the utility of the Polymath token? Is that the payment mechanism, or can they also pay in, say, Ether or Bitcoin to these developers?
Yeah, right now on the Polymath platform, you pay all of these different parties in Poly. So exclusively in Poly, you pay these parties in different things. Right now, how we have it set up, however, for raising capital, you can raise capital in Poly or Ether. And the reason being is just that there's not enough liquidity right now with the Poly token itself. We don't want to have the market completely fluctuate and have issuers essentially raise a bunch of money and then have the market go down because there was no liquidity after the fact. So we're allowing companies to raise capital in Ether at the current time. But the goal and the idea with the Poly token is that over time, more and more issuers will become more comfortable using Poly, and they might raise, let's say, 5% of their capital in Poly, and then maybe 10% of their capital in Poly, then maybe 20. And so that's kind of how we're thinking about the raising capital aspect of that scenario. But yeah, for everything else, people are interacting with Poly. So you pay a smart contract developer in Poly, you pay your KYC provider in Poly. When an investor goes through KYC, they pay in Poly. And as far as fees to the Polymath platform ourselves, there is almost no fees. So we haven't decided exactly yet if we are going to be charging fees for people to use the platform. One thing we've toyed around with is a very small fee just to essentially start the process and reserve a ticker symbol. So if you go to the Polymath platform, you can actually reserve a ticker symbol. So whatever you want to call it. I actually made, I've made it quite a few. So I reserved a few tickers myself. But so yeah, you can come reserve a ticker. And so we're thinking about the idea of, okay, well, maybe it costs 250 Poly to reserve a ticker. And what that'll do is that'll just essentially, hopefully deter people from squatting on tickers.
For sure.
People creating 1 million STOs or something, or a spam bot creating 1 million STOs, because we're just trying to think of how to do that. And so there will probably be some small fees to use the network, but really just to prevent spam and to keep people who really want to build STOs, keeping those as the people who are building them.
Definitely. Yeah, that makes sense. Every network needs some kind of spam prevention mechanism. So, putting in a small fee to reserve a ticker is a really strong way to do that.
Yeah.
So, there are other security token providers out there, or issuers, I guess you could say. What would you say is and they're not necessarily using a token. What is the reason, for example, that Polymath is using a poly token? Do you find that it adds an additional layer of friction? Does it give an additional benefit? What is the benefit of having the Polymath token ingrained into your ecosystem?
The benefit is that you can have a decentralized app that you're running, and you can do away with a lot of, essentially, you could call them like consulting fees that you might have to charge. So through the use of the poly token, essentially, while people are using that brings benefit and value to our network. You could think of it like that. Whereas if you don't have a token, you are running a company, and then, okay, well, you make money by charging fees in what, USD or Ether or something. And so then you go from this world where you have a decentralized application like Polymath, that's completely decentralized and built on the Ethereum blockchain, to a world where you essentially function like an advisory service. And when you're an advisory service, you can really only work on so many deals at one time, right? And so you have a function where you're like essentially a traditional investment bank, where you go, okay, yeah, are we going to take this client on? Okay, let's think about it. Let's review the client. Let's look at them. Okay, yeah, cool. And then you work on that for the next 6 months. And then you bring on another client and you work on them for the next 6 months. And actually, a long time ago, we were like, okay, that could actually be a cool idea. You run like a little boutique investment advisory shop and you're helping one issuer at a time. But we said, that's not really going to enable trillions of dollars to come onto the blockchain, right? Like that's only going to essentially help out a few people at one time. But what about the guy who wants to tokenize his car, or the guy who wants to tokenize his bike, or the girl who wants to tokenize her shed? I mean, like, these are just random ideas that I'm throwing out, but to do that, you can't run a consulting firm that charges 6-figure fees. You have to make an open platform that's available to be used by all, and that doesn't cost that much money to use. And so that's why we wanted to create the poly token, is because it makes it so much easier to allow us to capture value while having a decentralized application built on top of Ethereum.
For sure. Makes sense. So right now it's really not so time intensive to be able to launch the simplest form of an STO token on the Polymath network. What are some notable projects that are currently launched fully as an STO or that are upcoming into the STO world?
Yeah, one we're really, really excited about coming up is called Coral. So that's CORL. And Coral, so they're actually in the process of kind of doing the final crossing their T's and dotting their I's with the regulators in Canada and the US. And so they're going to be issuing a security token, hopefully in July or August is the time frame that we're looking at right now. And essentially, if you hold the Coral token, Coral is a company that invests in revenue producing businesses. And so you invest in the Coral token, Coral takes that money, they go out, invest in revenue producing businesses. Coral makes some percentage of net profit with that money that they invest. And then the Coral token holders receive some percentage of that net profit as dividends. So you can think of it like, it's kind of like a revenue sharing token. And so in the sense that Coral, some percentage of their profit gets paid out to the token holders as a dividend. And so we're really, really excited to be working with Coral, primarily because of the fact of how strict they're being with regulations. I mean, they probably could have launched a few months ago, but they went, okay, hold on. Like, we are the absolute trailblazers in this space right now. We really need to make sure that every single thing we're doing is completely on board and completely up to par, and that everything we're doing is regulatory compliant. So they're taking the absolute most necessary steps from a regulatory compliance standpoint. And that's like who we're really, really excited about working with. But then again, I mean, personally myself, what I'm excited about is when somebody tokenizes like their shoes or something. Yeah. I mean, like, I don't know why that idea is so exciting to me, but it's just it's just never been done before. Like, people have sold land as parcels before, and people have fractional ownership in companies before. And I mean, that's going to be amazing. The fact that people are going to be able to hold private securities that they can transfer very easily, that's going to create so much value, and we can't even begin to think of all the implications for that.
Yeah.
Just for me personally, though, it's like the cool stuff like that is things that weren't possible before. So somebody tokenizing a piece of artwork as well as something that I find really cool. There's not really many examples today, as far as I know, where somebody owns one painting and they've chopped it up into 20 pieces and sold it to 20 different people. Because ultimately, like, somebody has to store the artwork somewhere. But let's say you had an incredibly expensive piece of artwork that was worth $100 million and you tokenize 49% of it. Okay, now you just sold $49 million worth of that painting. You receive $49 million yourself. Now you can go buy some more paintings.
Mm-hmm.
Go and chop those up into a bunch of different pieces and sell them off. Then you can go buy more paintings and you can chop them up into a bunch of different pieces. And so it's just this really cool idea of all of these things that weren't possible before become possible because of Polymath and because of security tokens.
Mm-hmm. And it, like you say, it's not just the large things like stocks or real estate, but it's these really small assets, whether it's, Susie's pair of shoes, or whether you're, tokenizing music or artwork, or even, the possibility of tokenizing people and their potential profits. I think there's a massive potential out there and market for this to really reach into the mainstream, especially when it only takes 10 minutes or maybe a little bit more, depending how intense you get into it, to, become a fully compliant STO. I think it's just super exciting stuff. So you touched on that Coral will be launching, in later, I think July or August. That will be then the first major STO on the Polymath network. Yeah,
that will definitely be the largest in terms of our first couple issuers that we've been working with. And so they, I believe, are looking to raise around $45 million, I believe is the amount. And so, like, we're very confident in their ability to do that. And so, yeah, that'll definitely be the first large major issuer that we've announced. Another one that we actually recently announced is a company called Mint Health.
Yeah.
And so Mint Health, you're saying, yep, as though you know what's going on with Mint Health.
Yeah, but keep going. Yeah. I'm sure some people don't.
That's cool. I'm glad you do. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So Mint Health is a healthcare company. And so they actually have a dual token structure where they have a utility token that incentivizes people to do things like take their medication, incentivizes them to go to the doctor regularly, incentivizes them to do other good things that are good for their health. And so, I mean, that, to me, when I heard about blockchain technology, that was one of the earlier use cases I heard about people doing. And I thought that was really cool. And it's nice to see that a company is actually implementing this. But then in addition to that utility token, they also are raising capital purely as a security token. So they're raising capital and giving some portion of their company's equity away to their investors. And so Mint Health is going to be another one of the very large issuers that will be out very, very soon, actually. So Mint Health has done a great job as well with all of their regulatory compliance and working with top legal teams. And so we're really excited for them to come out as well.
And so just on a broad overview, I know it's tough to just ballpark it. What would you say or project in the number of tokens that would be launched on Polymath by the end of 2018 or by the end of 2019?
Yeah, it's really hard to predict.
I know.
The amount of interest that we've received is insane. And I mean, I would love to say hundreds of thousands this year. And I think that actually is possible. I think thousands of security tokens being created and issued is completely possible. The caveat, though, to saying that is if you're going to raise capital and you're going to issue a security, it is a incredibly good idea and essentially necessary idea to have some lawyer or some legal team that is helping you with that issuance. And so legal is still by far the biggest impediment to thousands and thousands of security tokens being created is the fact that legal still takes, let's say, 4 to 6 months. So when you're working with a law firm on doing those things, it still takes a lot of time. And so my more, I would say, grounded in reality, looking at the world of financial securities opinion would probably be more like 10 to 20 for 2019. In terms of companies that are using Polymath's protocol and Polymath's platform to issue a security, that's a much more reasonable assumption. But with that being said, that doesn't mean that a million people can't create their own security tokens. They can still do that. But the idea is that people will want to have proper legal representation in order to do any of these things. And so that's still the biggest kind of barrier to entry for most people.
Definitely. Yeah, that feels like a large friction point for the platform. You know, Polymath is essentially aggregating a lot of these service providers like lawyers, but to get 100,000 lawyers on hand that are all, you know, rated and reliable, that is quite the task. So is there something that you guys are doing to plan to kind of step up to that challenge, or are people going to be left out to go find their own lawyers once the pot has essentially kind of been taken away?
Yeah, the nice thing about lawyers is that they always find a way to help people and make money. So we're not too concerned about the scalability of the legal teams at this point. But yeah, essentially people would have to go elsewhere. If there were completely no lawyers available whatsoever on the Polymath platform for, let's say, 6 months to a year, like, yeah, definitely. And if you have your own legal teams, you just come to the Polymath platform, and on the screen that says, do you need a lawyer? You just click, no, I already have mine. So that's not a huge issue. And I don't think it's really a scalability issue. The really cool thing that we're doing, and this is something that will be coming online very shortly, is the idea of legal templates. And so the way to think about this, let's say you're an issuer, you're going to go issue a financial security, you're going to raise capital. What do? Well, you go talk to a great lawyer who's familiar with the securities laws in whatever jurisdiction you're operating in. Lawyer goes, okay, cool, yeah, all right, it'll take me a few weeks to write up these documents. I'll have to do a bunch of work, then I'll get back to you. Generally, the lawyer did the exact same thing 3 weeks ago for someone else, right? And I mean, like, this is, sorry to all the lawyers out there. I love you and I respect you guys, and you do a lot of great work. But a lot of the work that lawyers do is somewhat repetitive. So it comes down to how much does a lawyer want to automate those parts of the tasks that they're doing in securities issuances. And from what we've talked to, they want to automate as much of it as possible. No lawyer wants to do the same work over and over again. Lawyers are excited about new kinds of case law, new things that they can do, ways they can help their clients. They're not really excited about making sure that all the words are spelled right in a legal document. You know, they don't really care about that. They don't care about making sure that a Reg D offering, essentially that the one that they did last week, that it's like pretty much the same. Like they don't care about these kinds of things. So what we're doing is we're trying to create this repository similar to the smart contract repository that I talked about. We're trying to create this repository of legal templates where, let's say you are a US company, you're going to issue common stock equity, you're going to issue equity in your company, you're going to issue it to US accredited investors, you're going to do it under a Reg D exemption, right? Like, why shouldn't the next person who does that just be able to click a button and say, yeah, I want to do what the guy before did?
Definitely.
And so that's part of what we're trying to build. And so in conjunction with working with these lawyers will now have an additional revenue stream where, let's say, every single time someone clicks that lawyer's template, that lawyer gets paid.
Right.
Right. And so the issue with this becoming reality immediately is that it has never been done before. Right. And so we're trying to figure that out with lawyers and with regulators on how we can actually get this implemented so that a lawyer is comfortable with this taking place. But that ultimately is the vision that we really want to see, is this thing where you want to raise money, you go to the Polymath platform because that's where you go to raise capital. Do you have a lawyer? No. Okay, well, are you a US company raising equity from US investors under Reg D? Yes, click a button. Imagine if the legal work to raising money was that easy. You click the button. Like, that would be amazing. And that's really what, like, I'm very excited about. And then
I can tell you almost like you're like dreamed off, like,
oh my gosh, yes. It, like, we're like, oh my God, I want to see that happen. Right. There's that. And
I think the big thing with security tokens is, like, you know, it's what it's doing is facilitating a lot of things, making things that should be easy. And I think that's why it's like kind of that, like, oh, finally, like, click the button, make it happen. Like, it shouldn't be this hard to spend 4-6 months on, like, just legal work where your entire team is just handcuffed and really like sitting on their hands. It's crazy. So I share the exact same excitement. I have goosebumps talking about it, which is the weirdest thing.
Yeah, I understand completely. Don't worry, I've had the goosebumps before as well.
I never thought when I was a kid I'd be like, oh yeah, like legally compliant in 10 minutes. Oh, goosebumps.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So what else? So that's a really fantastic answer to the friction point of the lawyers and the law and being regulatory compliant. Do you see any other friction points coming up for Polymath, or any challenges that you guys are getting ready to step over?
I would say the biggest challenge is, I'd say, widespread mainstream adoption. Mm-hmm. Every single person, and I mean, I can't speak for everybody in the crypto world, but everybody is pretty comfortable with cryptocurrencies, right? Like, they understand how they work. They've been maybe to an exchange and they've traded Bitcoin for Ether or something, maybe some other coins as well. They trust this technology and they know that it works. And so those kinds of people that understand blockchain tech, that understand cryptocurrencies, that understand how they work, they're generally excited about security tokens. They go, okay, so instead of having a utility token that gives me access to a protocol, I can now buy something that functions very, very similarly, but it gives me access to having ownership in a real asset. And so those kinds of people are very excited about security tokens. However, when you talk to the general public, we say, yeah, you can buy these financial securities, but instead of Goldman Sachs and the DTCC taking care of your securities for you, just rely on the blockchain. It's fine. Don't worry about it. The blockchain's totally good, right? And so generally, those kinds of people will go, oh, okay, well, I don't know. I think I'd rather just have this piece of paper as my shares. And we've run into actually a lot of people who are really, really excited about this idea, because as soon as you say, no, you don't understand, for this private corporation, you know that piece of paper you have that's been sitting in a file cabinet for 3 years, completely illiquid, you can now unlock some of that liquidity and you can sell some portion of that financial security you own. Mm-hmm. That's when you kind of see people's eyes light up. So it's really this education of the mainstream investing public, teaching them, hey guys, the blockchain is not scary. It's been running for a very long time. The Ethereum blockchain has been running for a very long time. Bitcoin blockchain has been running for a very long time. We can actually use this technology, and it's actually, you may not know it, but it's safer and more secure than these pieces of paper and these humans that you're relying on. Mm-hmm. And so I think when we have more mainstream adoption of blockchain technology as a whole, I think that's where we're going to start seeing security tokens really taking off with the mainstream public, not just with people who understand blockchain tech.
Definitely. And, this isn't an overnight game, just like credit cards was something that was really scary to a lot of people. Like, well, hold on, like, what if I lose it? And like, what is this new technology? I think it's the same with blockchain. It just needs to take time to infuse till, they know a friend who's become comfortable with it, can explain it to them person to person. And yeah, these things do take time, but the more, I guess you could say, user-friendly the experience is, like generating a token in 10 minutes, that's pretty damn fantastic. And then just like nice clean interfaces and explanations, I think, yeah, things are really going to be taken off.
Yeah, we really pride ourselves on creating something that's beautiful and very easy to use. There aren't that many tools in the blockchain world that are easy to use and that are incredibly user-friendly. They're coming online finally after a few years, but for a while there, it's pretty hard to use some of this stuff. And at Polymath, we don't expect the executive of, let's say, Johnson & Johnson to go out and fundraise and have to understand essentially like how mining works, for example. Like we don't want them to have to think about that. All we want them to do is we want them to click some buttons. They see some very easily laid out text. It says, if you want to do this, do this. Oh, okay, cool. Like, we want to make it really, really easy for people who don't even understand blockchain tech to be able to use this technology to create financial securities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's what it's going to take as well. I think a lot of people get their heads wrapped up around that. Everyone needs to understand blockchain for there to be mainstream adoption. And there just needs to be a seamless integration where people have a faster, cheaper, more consistently trustworthy experience. And that's when we're going to start seeing things really shift. And so, like you say, once we start getting these better user interfaces live, I think that's really going to start happening a lot quicker than we can imagine.
Yeah.
So
I just want to add on to that. Yeah, like go get somebody to explain to you how TCP/IP works. You
yeah,
know, like nobody knows how the internet works. It's just
yeah,
the way that you talk to each other. You can click some buttons, you can have a car come and pick you up.
yeah,
You can click some buttons and you can have a product that you want arrive at your doorstep. You don't need to understand how the internet works to understand how transformative it is,
mm-hmm.
and to use it on a day-to-day basis. And we don't want to have people think that about blockchain technology. We want them to just be able to use it to do the things that they want to do. And the people that we're excited about doing that with is people who want to raise money and people who want to invest into securities.
Yeah, perfectly said. So to trade these security tokens, it's not a platform that you can use like Binance or Bittrex because, you know, they are securities, so they follow a different set of laws. So I know Open Finance Network is coming online, I think, on June 28th, correct?
Yeah, very soon. I can't remember the exact date, but yeah, their demo is out. If people want to go sign up for the demo, and they are going to be the first, as far as I know, squarely focused on security tokens exchange. And so we actually, we have a partnership announced with them, where we are working with them very closely to make sure that the tech that we're using is going to be compatible with Open Finance. Because if you go to the Polymath platform, you create a security token, and then it can't be traded anywhere in the secondary market, well, then who cares?
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't matter. Like, you essentially might as well have a piece of paper sitting in a filing cabinet somewhere.
Yeah, which at least you can trade with carrier pigeons or something like that.
Correct. Yes, carrier pigeons. I've heard they're making a comeback in this. And so, yeah, we're working really closely with Open Finance. We think they have a great team, and we're working really closely to make sure, okay, somebody comes to Polymath, they create a security token, will it be able to be traded on Open Finance? And so actually in our recent announcement that we did with Mint Health, who is the company I was talking about earlier, who's doing a security token using the Polymath protocol, Open Finance actually said Mint Health will be listed on Open Finance. So that's a huge win for us, Mint Health, Open Finance, and anybody who wants security tokens. I mean, so it's like this is the best industry like in the whole entire world, right? Yeah. So a lot of people would say something like, oh, like Open Finance, like they're doing security tokens. Polymath, you're doing security tokens. You guys are competitors, right? And I mean, even the competitors that we have, we still all just want the same thing.
Yeah.
We want a financial system that functions better. And Polymath has announced a number of partnerships and a number of collaborations with people who, at first glance, people might think they're competitors or that they're eating into Polymath's profits or something. But what we all realize is that if we make this security token thing a real thing, then everybody wins. And so we're all so excited just to work together towards this common goal. And I mean, I think it's amazing to see.
Definitely. Yeah, I think that is a huge thing. You know, people are like, well, you have Securitize and you have Polymath and they're fighting tooth and nail to try to get the #1 spot. But there's going to be such a massive influx of security tokens right now. You guys can kind of just like walk arm in arm down the road and be like, just taking all the people who come. Like, so yeah, and that's a good point. So you have Open Finance and then there's also T0. Is there, from your knowledge, a big difference between the two? And what is the onboarding process in terms of comparison to a platform like Binance?
Yeah, T0 and Open Finance, from what I understand in terms of what the platforms will look like and how the usability will be, I'm not sure there's that much difference. I mean, it's an exchange, right? Like people are very familiar with exchanges. T0 is headed up by Patrick Byrne, who's the CEO and founder of Overstock.com. I mean, Overstock.com is very easy to use, very simple website. I mean, T0 will have a very similar usability factor, just really easy to use. And Open Finance, from the demo that I tried, incredibly easy to use. The onboarding process, I'm not 100% sure of exactly what it will look like, but you could think of it as being similar to an exchange that requires KYC. So I can't remember what Binance is requesting today. Is Binance doing KYC on people today?
I don't believe so.
Right. So there will be some portion of KYC to get onboarded to these exchanges because you are dealing in the world of regulated financial securities. So you have to do that stuff if you want to touch any of these instruments.
Which makes sense because you need your profile to match up with the profile of the Polymath token. So essentially the extra work is happening on the Polymath side, just when you do your KYC with Polymath, then, you're linked to this non-blacklisted essentially entity. And so then you can then link that with the like Open Finance or T0.
Yeah. So I'll clear this up a little bit more. So there will be a whitelist that's maintained by each issuer for each token. So Polymath itself actually isn't doing the KYC. Mm-hmm. So Polymath works with third-party KYC providers. And so those KYC providers or the issuer themselves is the person or the company that's doing the KYC on these actual people, and they're maintaining their own individual whitelists. So Polymath itself isn't actually holding on to any of these whitelists. Polymath is just the place you go and the protocol that you use in order to use these whitelists seamlessly with your token.
Perfect. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. Definitely. Cool. So you guys just announced, I believe it was yesterday, that you implemented Polymath Core Toro version 1.2.0. Yeah. What are some of the things that you're excited about most about this new upgrade?
Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, good post. Pablo is the absolute man. He's probably one of the smartest guys I've ever met and one of the hardest working guys I ever met. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, we now have a dividend module, which is huge. So anybody, where previously you could not pay dividends with tokens, it just didn't really work. So now what you're going to have the ability to do is you're going to be able to, while you're creating your token, you have a drop-down menu. It says, do you want to pay dividends? Yes. Okay. Yes. And you add the dividend module to your token. And now your token can pay dividends. You can specify it to pay at whatever frequency you want. Mm-hmm. Specify it to pay. We're actually allowing you to pay in ETH or in ERC20. So that is a very, very cool idea as well. So you don't just have to give your investors ETH always. You can give them a different ERC20 token if they want. And so that's something interesting that an investor can actually use, or that an issuer, can use to entice investors. You say, hey, you might not like ETH for some reason. Maybe you prefer some other token. And then there could actually be a company that had different classes of shares, where one class of share pays tokens in ERC20 tokens and one pays shares in ETH tokens. Right. So there's all these different things you can do with that dividend module that we've now added. What else is there? Okay. So you can now pause an STO if you need to. So let's say you're raising capital in a security token offering, something goes wrong, or maybe you need to reassess your company's future. You need to reassess kind of what your company is planning to do. Are you raising the right amount of capital? Do you need to raise more? Do you need to raise less? Do you need to change the offering at any point? Well, now you can actually pause the STO at any time. Mm-hmm. Then you can also, what is there? I'm actually reading through this post right now because I realized that there's so much stuff. I forgot some of it.
It came out yesterday, so yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, oh my God, it's so good. Okay. And so then there's an updated command line interface as well, which I'm really excited about. So that makes it much easier for developers to actually interact with the newest version. And so that developers, our code is all completely open source. If there is a developer that's watching this and thinking, oh, okay, I want to go kind of take a look at this Polymath platform, I want to see what's going on, you can go. And you can push some commits, you can see what's going on, you can make some suggestions, you can write to us on Gitter as well. That's where our developers like to hang out. And so you can see all of this cool stuff that's been implemented in this latest release.
Perfect. And what are 3 partnerships that you're personally excited about with Polymath that potentially we haven't touched upon?
Yeah, I would say Catapult would be one. So Catapult has been actually really, really great partner for us. So they're doing some of the KYC onboarding for our investors. So like, what does it look like when an investor comes to the Polymath platform and they get onboarded? Well, we don't know, right? But so Catapult has been very, very instrumental in helping us build that. And Catapult is actually a pretty well-known company. And actually, I thought this was kind of interesting. Catapult and Polymath were named in this contest for Most Promising Partnership Award. And it was some fintech event where it was like Polymath and Catapult versus something like Goldman Sachs and somebody else. And I thought,
so this wasn't just like Tron and like Alibaba.
Yeah,
this was something else.
Yeah. We are not affiliated to Justin Sun, just for anybody who's wondering. So I would say Catapult is one. Catapult has been a great partner for KYC. Another would be Genesis Block. Genesis Block is helping companies as an advisory firm, so helping them in terms of raising capital and advising them on what kind of capital they should be raising, from what kinds of people, from where. So that's the way to think about Genesis Block. Genesis Block and us, we recently just announced that we'll be releasing or helping create 2 tokens with Genesis Block. One's called Real Fan Token, and the other one's called Development Token. Let me make sure that I get this right. Here we go. And Genesis Block is also helping with Mint Health, which is a really big win for us. Genesis Block has been absolutely great with everything we've been doing. Who else are I really excited about? It's tough to I don't want to make anybody feel bad by not saying.
Yeah. Well, maybe I'll pop one in then. A project that I'm super keen on myself is Crowd Machine. If you want
Crowd Machine, amazing. Yes.
If you want to touch on what the partnership dynamic is between you guys.
Yeah, so Crowd Machine is I don't want to take the words out of their mouth or whatever. But so Crowd Machine, very focused on essentially making sure that developers can easily run code. And the other way to think about it is, let me pull up notes on Crowd Machine.
Yeah, because they have their Crowd computer, which allows you to run applications through a decentralized network, kind of like Golem. And they also have where you can build decentralized applications using zero code. So I'm curious as to what aspects of the Crowd Machine platform you're leveraging.
Yeah, the main thing with Crowd Machine is the fact that because we want to have all of these smart contract developers that are building all of these different contracts for people, well, Crowd Machine takes that and kind of flips it on its head and says, well, does it even need to be a smart contract developer? Right. So what Crowd Machine is really focused on is helping people who are non-technical being able to implement code. Right. And so I feel like Crowd Machine's hashtag is something like no code or something.
Yeah.
And so, that's a really cool idea. So what Polymath is focused on is making sure that non-technical people can easily create security tokens. Right. And so what Crowd Machine is focused on is making sure that non-technical people, it's easier for them to code. And so on the Polymath platform, with all of this smart contracts being developed and all of these modules that need to be created, like these dividend modules that I talked about, well, that's a really easy kind of to think about partnership. Well, Polymath's making it easy for non-technical people to do STOs. Crowd Machine is making it easy for non-technical people to code. So if we can bring even more people that are contributing to this smart contract ecosystem on the Polymath platform, that just makes a ton of sense. And so we're really excited about not just smart contract developers being able to create smart contracts, but people who can create smart contracts through Crowd Machines, essentially API and everything, and ensuring that they can do that in a very seamless fashion.
Perfect. And what other, I guess you could say, exciting developments have happened in the last week or are upcoming? Anything that we haven't touched upon yet where you're like, I just got to talk about this?
Mainnet. So Polymath is going live on Ethereum Mainnet, I would say within the month or within 1 month from today. So we're essentially pretty much finishing the final touches on what we want to release on Mainnet. We will be sending it off to auditors who can audit all the code and all the smart contracts. And then we are looking to push live to Ethereum Mainnet in a month. And so that is going to be big. So you can actually go right now to the Polymath platform on testnet and do your own STO right now and issue your own security token. The thing is that it'll be on Ethereum testnet, so it'll be on Kovan. But in about 1 month from right now, you can go to the Polymath platform, issue your very own security token. And so, that is the biggest thing that we're all focused on right now is how can we make sure that we get this out the door quickly, and that when we push it out the door, that it's completely bug-free,
for sure,
it works, and that it's been audited, because these are actual financial securities that people are creating. And so we need to make sure that everything is completely up to par and that it all works and that people are going to be really happy with the experience that they have.
So in summation, 1 month, Polymath launches to Ethereum Mainnet, and people will be able to launch their own security token within 10 minutes on the Ethereum main chain.
Correct. Yeah. Beautifully said.
Well, that is pretty exciting. And I think there's going to be some, I'm interested to see what gets created within those first 24 hours and first couple of weeks. It's going to be some pretty cool things.
Yeah. The cool thing for me is Satoshi Nakamoto writes this white paper in '08. Like, you don't immediately after see CryptoKitties, you know?
Yeah.
You don't, it's really hard to see that connection. And I mean, I think there's going to be some things like that with the platform that we're building, where you can essentially now fractionalize ownership in anything on Earth, or anything not on Earth, if you want to get that kind of meta and out there with it.
Right.
I mean, it's going to be really cool, and I'm really excited.
That's great. So to wrap up, I'd love to just ask you a couple of personal questions. And then, so what purchase of $100 or less has most positively impacted your life in the last 6 months?
The last 6 months.
Or if it's over 6 months, that's totally fine as well.
Yeah. What have I bought recently? I'll do like $120 if that's cool.
That's fair. Yeah.
I got some new running shoes. And I really, really like them. So they're the Nike 1.0 free trainers. And so they have no heel in them or anything. And for a while I was wearing shoes that I was sort of happy with, and just like, I was just like, whatever, I was living my life and it was fine, and it wasn't too bad or anything. But I finally, it was just like, okay, I'm going to buy these shoes that I really want, and I'm going to stop messing around and pretending like I don't really need them. And that, my life is so much better, like, in my opinion. I don't know like how much better, but it's been better in terms of my workouts, in terms of running, in terms of pain and things like that. Just I should have bought them like 3 years ago. I was thinking about buying them a long time ago. I never did. And then eventually I was like, okay, I just have to finally do this already. So it takes me a long time to make decisions like that. So I was happy that I finally did it.
For sure. And so they have no heel on them.
Yeah, essentially no heel. Yeah.
Well, if you ever go about tokenizing them, let me know. Maybe I'll pop in on there.
Yeah, for sure.
In the last 5 years, what new belief, behavior, or habit has most improved your life?
Damn, that's a good one. That's really good. Give me like 2 seconds.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh my gosh. There's been a lot of stuff that's definitely changed in my life in that time period. I would say realizing that all you have on Earth is time. Mm. There is nothing else that matters in any order of magnitude close to your time on Earth. I'm not going to say I was crazy focused about material things or anything before. Like, it definitely wasn't anything like that, but it was more, okay, let me make sure that I go do this, and then I can do this, and then I can do that, and then I have this thing, and I have this thing, and I have this thing. And then that's kind of what a lot of people think is going to make you happy in life, or that you're going to finally feel like you succeeded, or whatever that is, success. Yeah. But realizing, and this was actually when I was working in the old world of finance, it was so boring and slow, and like nothing really happened. It was kind of just the same thing over and over again. But realizing, okay, nothing that you have is ever going to really matter to you. All that you really have is, what do you do with the 24 hours that you're on Earth? Mm-hmm. Choose to live that in a way that fulfills you? Do you choose that time to spend with people who you like spending time with? Do you talk about the things, and do you do the things that you actually enjoy? Or are you just completely bogged down in things that really at the end of the day don't matter? And so I would say, the realization that all we have is time, and that you need to do stuff that sets you on fire. Mm-hmm. You need to do stuff that lights you up. You need to do things that make you a better person, and that make people around you excited to be around you, right? Because if all you're doing is just focusing on yourself and making sure that you have some things, and making sure that there's so much stuff that's pointless. so much stuff that is pointless. And if you're squarely focused on, am I enjoying the way I'm spending my time, everything else kind of just falls into place and you don't have to worry about it. So just do the things that you want to do, and everything else will kind of take care of itself.
And then, so that would be the round summation advice. Do the things you want to do. Things will take care of themselves.
Yeah, completely.
Beautiful, man. If you could have a giant billboard and it would reach billions of people, everybody would see it on Earth. Yep. What would it say on that billboard?
I love Tim Ferriss as well. Oh man,
if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's my motto.
I 100% agree. And I've thought of this so many times. What was my most recent one I was thinking of? It was, I think it was my most recent one that I really, really enjoyed that I was thinking of, in terms of the billboard was, it was, what the fuck are you waiting for?
Uh-huh.
And so like that comes back to kind of the same thing of like, are you enjoying what you're doing? Are you? If you're not, then what are you waiting for? Are you waiting for something outside of your control to occur that jolts you into making a change?
Mm-hmm.
Why are you waiting for that thing? Like, just go do that thing you want to do. Shout outs to Nike, just do it, I guess. But what the fuck are you waiting for? And I mean, when I picture it, it's a black billboard in massive white caps lock letters.
Yeah.
And so that's what it would be.
Awesome. All right, Graeme, thank you so much for coming on today. It has been an absolute pleasure, and we'll chat soon.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. It's been really good.